the galaxy was never truly silent. Stars burned, ships moved, and endless signals of trade, war, and diplomacy crossed the void like rivers of light. But then, one night in the deep black, silence began to spread. At first it was nothing more than a flicker. An observatory station orbiting a cold blue star reported that its long-range scanners had gone blind. Minutes later, another outpost on the edge of the Andari Nebula lost all contact. Within hours, communication across 3 sectors vanished. The stars themselves seemed to fall silent. The alien empires did not notice at first. They were too busy arguing, too busy waging their small wars, too proud to see the danger. But in the shadows, whispers began. Traders swore entire lanes had gone dark. Patrols never returned. And the silence grew. The galaxy had not known silence like this for centuries, not since the humans had disappeared. The Council of the Valor Dominion was the first to speak the fear aloud. They gathered in their crystal chamber, voices echoing like glass against glass. "This silence," their high speaker said, "it feels familiar. Like the storm that came before humanity's fall." The others dismissed him at first, but none could ignore the reports. Ships lost without a trace. Signals cut off mid-sentence. Stars that once glittered with life now standing cold and quiet. And then came the image. A lone deep space observatory, hidden in the orbit of a dead star, caught it. A shadow moving where no shadow should exist. It was massive, stretching longer than any ship built in this age. No alien fleet claimed it. No records matched it. Its outline was clear, a warship. Human-built. Panic rippled through the empires. For generations they had believed the humans were gone. Some said Earth had burned itself in civil war. Others claimed the humans had scattered, too weak to matter. But now, with the silence spreading like a disease, the old legends returned. They remembered Earth's fury, Earth's endless drive, Earth's refusal to kneel. Now that refusal had taken form again, and it hung like a blade over the galaxy. On the warship's bridge, silence was not emptiness, it was discipline. Rows of men and women sat at their stations, eyes locked on glowing screens. Their uniforms bore no colors, no emblems, only the sharp mark of unity. No one spoke unless ordered. The hum of the engines was the only sound. At the center, standing tall before the viewing glass, was the captain. His face was cut by age but unbroken by time. He looked out at the dying star, its faint light painting the warship's black hull. "Hold position," he said, his voice low, calm, dangerous. The crew obeyed without question. For now, they did not fire, they did not advance. They only watched. And waiting was worse than war. Across the galaxy, alien leaders sent fleets to investigate. Scouts crept near the silent systems, hoping to see what lurked in the dark. Few returned. Those who did spoke in broken voices. One Kalari pilot shook as he described it. "We flew close, too close. Their ship did not move. It did not need to move. Our systems died the moment we crossed its shadow. We drifted blind until they let us go." The council chambers filled with fear. Some argued the humans had come for revenge. Others claimed it was only a ghost, a weapon left from a forgotten war. But all agreed on one thing: the silence was spreading, and no one could stop it. On the warship, the crew prepared quietly. No cheers, no speeches. They had waited too long for this moment. Centuries of exile, centuries of silence, centuries of rebuilding in hidden places had brought them here. They were not just another species returning to the stars. They were humanity, united under one purpose. Revenge was not their only fuel. Memory was. Every humiliation, every betrayal, every laugh from alien lips had been carved into their history. And now history had come back, shaped into steel, fire, and silence. The captain did not smile, but his eyes burned with something older than hate. He placed a hand on the glass as the dead star flickered one last time. "Let them see us," he said softly. "Let them know the silence is ours." Far away, in alien courts and chambers, Fear turned into preparation. Armies were called, alliances discussed, fleets armed for battle. But deep down, even the bravest leaders knew the truth. This was not just the return of an old enemy. This was the storm reborn. And storms did not ask permission to strike. The silence before the storm was over. Humanity had taken its place again among the stars, and the galaxy was about to remember why it had feared Earth's name. The image of the warship spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Every council, every throne, every military office stared at the same grainy recording, a dark shape moving slowly against the light of a dead star. It was too large, too perfect in design to be mistaken for natural debris. And the outline was unmistakable. Humanity had returned. In the capital of the Zanari Republic, the Senate argued through the night. One senator shouted that it was a trick, a weapon built by a rival empire to spread fear. Another insisted that the design, the style, even the silent movement of the ship was exactly as the old records described the humans. The chamber turned into chaos. In the end, no decision was made. Fear had broken their unity. On the far edge of the galaxy, the Valor Dominion summoned its generals. They had fought the humans long ago and still carried the scars. The generals remembered the endless battles, the relentless push of human fleets, the way humanity had fought even when outnumbered 1,000 to 1. They remembered the strange fire in human eyes, the refusal to surrender, the madness that made them both terrifying and unstoppable. The High Speaker of the Dominion raised a trembling hand and said, "If the warship is real, if humanity truly returns, then the balance of the galaxy is broken forever." Yet not all voices spoke in fear. Some whispered in hope. Small races that had lived under the iron grip of larger empires remembered stories of human defiance. They remembered how humanity never bowed to the mighty. To them, the shadow of the warship was not terror, it was justice waiting in the dark. Across smuggler dens and slave markets, whispers began to spread. The humans are back. Perhaps the chains will break. Meanwhile, the silence across the stars continued to grow. Entire sectors went dark. Traders disappeared. Patrol fleets sent to investigate never returned. And the galaxy realized something chilling. The humans were not attacking, not conquering. They were only watching. On the warship, the crew remained quiet at their stations. No celebration, no speeches of victory. They were soldiers of silence. Their captain stood at the center of the bridge, eyes fixed on the holographic map of the galaxy. Red dots blinked for the alien fleets moving to investigate. His officers waited for orders, but the captain only said 3 words, "Hold your ground." That simple command spread more fear than 1,000 battles. Because the aliens realized that humanity was not in a hurry. The humans had time, patience, and a purpose unknown to anyone else. Fleets were dispatched to test the shadow. The first squadron of the Zorak Alliance approached carefully, weapons armed. They reported nothing unusual. Then, without warning, every system on their ships shut down. Engines died. Weapons froze. Communication turned to static. In the blackness, the warship remained still. Hours later, only one ship returned. Its crew was half mad with terror. They spoke of the silence, the feeling of being watched, the sudden collapse of everything they thought was safe. One pilot whispered again and again, "They didn't fire at us. They didn't need to." That phrase echoed across every court and chamber. They didn't need to. Suddenly every empire realized the truth. If humanity could disable fleets without firing a shot, then no number of ships could stand against them. Yet some leaders refused to bow to fear. In the capital of the Sarn Collective, the War Chancellor stood tall before his people. "We will not be ruled by ghosts," he declared. "If humanity dares to rise again, we will burn them from the stars once more." His words earned cheers, but in the dark corners of the chamber, even his own advisors whispered doubts. They knew the humans had always thrived when outnumbered, when underestimated, when hunted. They knew the silence was not weakness. It was the gathering of a storm. On the warship's bridge, the captain finally broke the quiet. He turned to his crew and spoke in a voice that carried across every console and every heart. "They are afraid," he said. "Good. Let them be. Fear is the beginning. When the time comes, fear will become memory, and memory will become fire." The crew gave no cheer. They only nodded, steady and disciplined. Each of them carried the same story. The story of exile, the story of survival in forgotten corners of space, the story of Earth left behind but never forgotten. Each of them had waited their entire lives for this moment. Across the galaxy, fear deepened into whispers. Whispers of fleets preparing for war. Whispers of empires sending spies to find the truth. Whispers of humans moving in silence, hidden in the dark, watching and waiting. But louder than all whispers was a question no one could answer. What do the humans want? If they wanted revenge, why had they not struck already? If they wanted conquest, why did they sit still? The uncertainty was worse than open war. For in war, enemies could be seen, weapons could be counted, victories and defeats could be measured. But in silence, only the imagination ruled, and the imagination of the galaxy filled with terror. The stars had fallen silent, and the silence itself was a weapon. The galaxy could not remain still forever. Fear had spread, but fear alone was not enough for the powerful empires. They demanded action. Armies were restless, leaders grew impatient, and whispers of human return had thrown entire systems into chaos. Something had to be done. It was the Zorak alliance that made the first move. Their fleets were among the strongest in the galaxy, and their pride could not allow them to tremble before shadows. The warlord of Zorak gathered his admirals and declared in a booming voice, "If this warship belongs to the humans, then we will break it. If it is a lie, then we will prove it. But either way, we will not sit in silence." 10 warships were chosen for the mission, each armed with the latest plasma lances and shield grids. Their crews believed they were invincible. They entered the silent sector with banners raised and weapons hot. For days they searched among the cold stars, finding nothing but drifting rocks and dead stations. Confidence grew. Perhaps it was a ghost after all, some trick of old technology or a tale told to frighten weaker races. Then, on the 4th day they saw it. A shadow, larger than anything their scanners had ever measured, drifted from behind a shattered moon. The warship moved slowly, but its presence filled the void like a mountain hanging in the sky. The Zorak fleet opened a channel, their commander shouting threats and demands. The warship gave no reply. It only watched. The commander grew angry. "Fire!" he ordered. 10 ships unleashed their full power. Lances of burning plasma shot through the darkness, slamming into the warship's hull. But instead of explosions, instead of damage, the fire was swallowed. The blasts scattered like water striking stone. Not a single mark was left. The warship did not fire back. Instead, the Zorak ships flickered. Their engines coughed, their weapons dimmed, their lights began to die. Panic filled the cockpits. Systems that had been tested 1,000 times collapsed in seconds. Crews screamed as their ships went blind, floating helplessly in the black. The warship moved closer, silent, patient. Its shadow stretched across the Zorak fleet until the stars vanished behind it. One by one, the ships were consumed by silence. Only a single vessel remained active, its engines barely holding. The warship paused before it, as if deciding its fate. Then, slowly, the human ship pulled back. Lights on the crippled vessel flickered to life again. Without firing a single shot, the warship had destroyed 9 ships and spared one. That ship limped back to the Alliance with a broken crew and a single message. The surviving commander stood before the warlord of Zorak, trembling, his voice cracked and weak. "They do not fight like us," he said. "They do not fight like anyone. They fight like ghosts." The words spread faster than any fleet could travel. Every empire, every race heard them. Ghosts. The humans had become ghosts in the stars. No weapon could strike them. No shield could stand against them. And the most terrifying part, they chose who lived and who died. In the hidden chambers of the Valor Dominion, the generals argued once more. If they can destroy fleets without firing, what hope do we have? Asked one. Another slammed his fist against the table. Then we must strike first, before they grow stronger. But a third voice, older and colder, whispered, what if this is not their strength at all? What if this is only their beginning? Across the galaxy, small races began to cheer in secret. Slaves whispered in chains, rebels hid hope in their hearts. The humans are back, they said. The powerful will finally fall. But the great empires saw only danger. They called councils, they prepared armies, they plotted alliances. They thought humanity would strike soon, and they were right. On the warship's bridge, the captain stood before the silent crew. He had not spoken since the Zorak fleet fled. Now his eyes fixed on the stars ahead, and his voice cut through the quiet. They have tested us. Now they will fear us. Prepare the ship. Officers moved without hesitation. Weapons powered in silence. Engines rumbled like thunder beneath steel. The warship turned slowly, its bow pointing deeper into alien space. For centuries, humanity had hidden. For centuries, they had been silent. But silence was not weakness. Silence was preparation. The galaxy had made the first move. Now it was humanity's turn. Long before the silence spread across the stars, humanity had vanished. To the galaxy it had seemed sudden, like a flame snuffed out by unseen hands. One day human colonies still traded, fought, and explored, and the next they were gone. Alien historians wrote it as a fall, a self-destruction, a lesson in pride. But the truth was different. Humanity had not died. Humanity had hidden. In the darkest corners of the galaxy, far from the charts and maps of alien powers, there were systems ignored for being unstable, barren, or cursed. It was there, in the forgotten shadows, that humanity rebuilt. At first it was survival, nothing more. Small fleets of refugees carried the last seeds of Earth's people. They landed on broken worlds, carved shelters into rock, and learned to live with almost nothing. Generations passed in silence. But silence did not mean surrender. The memory of humiliation burned too deep. Humanity remembered how the empires had laughed when Earth fell. They remembered how promises of alliance had turned to betrayal, how alien fleets had descended like vultures to take what remained. And so, in the shadows, humanity began to forge itself into something new. They abandoned the divisions that had once torn them apart. No nations, no borders, no petty rivalries. Only one banner remained, the banner of survival. They built schools where children were taught not just science and war, but the story of what had been stolen from them. They trained soldiers not for conquest, but for patience, for silence, for the day when the stars would remember their name. Centuries turned humanity into something the galaxy had never seen before. Their ships became darker, stronger, hidden from the eyes of scanners. Their weapons did not roar like others. They whispered, precise and silent, striking without warning. And in their hearts they carried no illusions. They did not dream of peace with those who had betrayed them. They did not seek friendship with those who had mocked them. They sought only one thing, to ensure that humanity would never again be forgotten, never again be weak. On the warship's bridge, the captain stood at the viewing glass, his reflection caught in the stars. He remembered the stories told by his grandfather, stories of Earth before the silence. The laughter of cities, the music of oceans, the pride of a people who believed they were unbreakable. Then the fire, the betrayal, the fall. Those stories had shaped him. They had shaped every soul on this ship. He raised his hand and touched the cold glass as if reaching for the stars themselves. For every star that mocked us, he whispered, we bring silence. Behind him, the crew worked in silence, their discipline forged by generations of training. They were not just soldiers. They were descendants of a vow never to forget, never to forgive. Each carried the memory of Earth like a blade in the dark. Across the galaxy, rumors of humanity's past returned to the surface. Old generals who had once fought Earth remembered the way humans refused to die. Alien scholars unearthed fragments of history, records of battles where human fleets fought long after they should have been crushed. The galaxy realized too late that humanity's disappearance had never been defeat, it had been transformation. In the council chambers of the Kalari Ascendancy, their speaker of war spoke in fear. We thought they burned. We thought they broke. But they sharpened themselves in shadows. They were never gone. They were waiting. Whispers spread like fire. If the warship was only one vessel, then how many more had been built in the dark? If humanity had survived in silence, then what else had they created? What secrets had they forged away from prying eyes? And worst of all, what did they want now? On the warship, the captain finally turned from the glass. His eyes met those of his officers, steady and unshaken. We are not here for conquest, he said. We are not here for mercy. We are here for memory. The galaxy forgot us. It will remember. His words carried no rage, no wild fire, only the cold certainty of steel. The crew nodded, their faces calm, their hands steady. They did not need cheers. They did not need songs. They needed only silence and time, and both were already theirs. The shadows of the past had shaped them, and now those shadows stretched across the galaxy, longer and darker than ever before. Humanity had risen from exile, not as the broken children of Earth, but as something far greater. And the galaxy was about to learn that silence was not absence. Silence was power. The galaxy could no longer ignore the silence. Too many fleets had vanished, too many signals had gone dark, and too many witnesses had returned broken by fear. Humanity's warship was not just a rumor anymore, it was the new reality. And the empires of the galaxy, proud and unwilling to bow, began to gather. For the first time in centuries, enemies sat together in uneasy alliance. The Zanari Republic, the Valor Dominion, the Sarn Collective, even the Zorak Alliance who had already tasted defeat, all sent their fleets to one place. They called it the Grand Coalition, a force greater than any single empire could command. Hundreds of ships, each armed with weapons powerful enough to level planets, now pointed themselves toward the silent sector. The galaxy believed that numbers would break the silence. On the warship, humanity watched the gathering storm. The captain stood at the center of the bridge, his eyes fixed on the holographic map where red dots multiplied like a spreading infection. The crew did not flinch. They had trained for this moment their entire lives. The captain raised his hand and gave the same command he always did. Hold position. The crew obeyed. Outside, the stars glittered like nothing had changed, but in the hidden corners of every empire, leaders waited in fear. Would the humans strike first? Would they unleash weapons unknown to the galaxy? But the warship remained silent. It did not move. It did not fire. It only watched. That waiting was unbearable. Finally the Grand Coalition entered the sector. Their fleets formed walls of steel and fire, their engines burning bright against the black. Commanders shouted orders across comms, each voice fighting to be louder than the rest. They demanded surrender, demanded answers, demanded humanity show itself. The warship gave no reply. Tension snapped like a blade. A single coalition commander broke the silence, ordering his ships to advance. Then hundreds of vessels surged forward, weapons charged, ready to strike. On the warship's bridge, the crew remained calm. The captain's eyes narrowed. "Prepare the systems," he said. The order moved through the ship like a quiet storm. In the dark, hidden machines began to hum. Fields of invisible energy stretched outward like a shadow too large to measure. And when the first wave of coalition ships reached firing range, it happened. Without a single shot fired, hundreds of vessels blinked out of life. Engines died. Weapons froze. Lights dimmed. Crews screamed as their ships turned powerless, drifting like dead leaves in space. Only a fraction of the coalition fleet remained active, but those few charged forward in desperation, unleashing volleys of plasma and missiles. The warship finally moved. Not with speed, not with panic, but with slow, terrifying precision. Its weapons lit the void with lines of fire never seen before. Beams of energy cut through ships as if they were paper. Explosions tore across the battlefield, lighting up the stars. In minutes, the largest fleet in galactic history was broken. On the warship's bridge, the captain stood unshaken. He had not raised his voice once. He had not spoken of victory or glory. He had only watched the galaxy's arrogance crumble before his eyes. Across the galaxy, news of the battle spread. The Grand Coalition was no more. Fleets that had once believed themselves untouchable were now wrecks drifting in silence. Survivors spoke in hushed voices, their words trembling with terror. They didn't fight like us. They didn't fight at all. They erased us. The empires tried to silence these voices, but fear spread too fast. Small races celebrated in secret, whispering that the age of the great empires was ending. Rebels raised their heads, chains rattled, and hope was born where there had been none. But among the mighty, rage grew. They had been humiliated, their pride shattered by a single ship. They vowed revenge, even as they feared it. On the warship, the captain gave his final order of the day. "Broadcast nothing," he said. "Let silence speak for us." His crew obeyed. The wreckage of the coalition fleets drifted across the stars, sending its own message louder than any broadcast ever could. The galaxy now understood, humanity did not need words, did not need alliances, did not need permission. Their silence was command. Their patience was power. Their will was unbreakable. The clash had ended, but it was only the beginning. Humanity had shown its strength, and the galaxy had no choice but to remember. The wreckage of the Grand Coalition floated in silence. Burned hulls drifted like shattered bones across the sector, glowing faintly in the dying light of nearby stars. No distress signals, no cries for help, only silence. Across the galaxy, the story spread faster than light. The greatest fleet ever assembled had been broken in a matter of minutes, erased by a single warship that never once showed fear. Leaders trembled, soldiers whispered, and ordinary citizens prayed their worlds would not be next. For centuries the galaxy had mocked humanity, dismissing them as reckless dreamers who had vanished into history. Now those same voices were silent, and silence itself became a weapon sharper than any blade. In the hidden chambers of the Valor Dominion, the High Speaker listened to the reports in dread. "Hundreds of ships," he muttered, "and they destroyed them without effort." His generals did not answer. What words could explain such defeat? In the Republic of Zanari, the Senate screamed at one another. Some demanded peace with humanity at any cost. Others demanded revenge, no matter the risk. Their debates turned violent, but none dared act. Fear was stronger than pride. On the warship, humanity prepared its next move. The captain stood tall at the center of the bridge, his face calm, his voice steady. "It is time," he said. His officers turned to him with anticipation. For years they had trained in silence, for years they had hidden in shadows, but now the moment had come to speak. Not with weapons. Not with destruction. With a message. The communication chamber glowed to life, its walls lined with transmitters capable of reaching every corner of the galaxy. The captain stepped inside. He pressed a single control, and across thousands of systems, alien screens flickered. Leaders, soldiers, merchants, even slaves looked up as their devices went dark. For a heartbeat, the galaxy froze. Then the message began. A human face appeared on every screen, stern, unbroken, and filled with something older than rage. His voice was calm, steady, carrying across the stars with perfect clarity. "We do not seek conquest," he said. "We do not seek submission. We are not your rulers, and we are not your prey. We are humanity. We endured the silence you gave us. We endured the betrayal you offered. We endured the exile you forced upon us. And now we return." The galaxy listened in stunned silence. The humans' eyes burned with certainty. "We will not kneel again. Remember that. You may arm your fleets, you may build your alliances, you may whisper your fears in the dark, but you will remember our name. Earth lives. Humanity stands. And the silence belongs to us." With that, the transmission ended. For a long moment, the galaxy remained frozen. Then chaos erupted. In some systems, people cheered, their voices echoing with hope. Slaves cried tears of joy, rebels raised their fists, and forgotten races whispered prayers of gratitude. In other places, fear consumed them. Leaders called emergency meetings, armies mobilized, and fleets were ordered to prepare for war. But the message had been sent, and no one could erase it. Humanity had declared its return. On the warship's bridge, the crew sat in silence. No celebration, no applause. They were not here for glory. They were here for memory, and the message had carried that memory to every star. The captain turned to his officers and said, "Now they know. Now they will choose." Across the galaxy, choices were already being made. In the courts of the Sarn Collective, the war chancellor raged at his generals. "They dare threaten us with silence? Then let us answer with fire." Yet even as he shouted, his hands shook. In the shadows of the Kalari ascendancy, secret envoys whispered different words. Perhaps humanity is not our enemy. Perhaps humanity is our shield. And in the slums of forgotten worlds, small children spoke of the humans as heroes, saviors, legends reborn. But hidden among the chaos, a darker truth surfaced. The coalition survivors had brought back something else, not only fear, but knowledge. They had seen weapons no one understood, technologies that bent the laws of war. And buried deep in encrypted files was a warning. The warship was not the only one. Somewhere in the dark, more human fleets waited. The message had said as much, though not in words. The silence itself carried the truth. Humanity had endured in shadows for centuries. No one knew how many ships, how many weapons, how many soldiers they had forged. The galaxy had fought one warship and lost. What would happen when the rest arrived? On the warship, the captain stood by the viewing glass, his gaze fixed on the endless dark. His reflection merged with the stars, his voice barely a whisper. "We do not seek conquest. But we will not kneel again." The crew heard him, and their silence was the only answer he needed. The message had been sent. The galaxy had heard. And nothing would ever be the same. The galaxy had heard humanity's message, and the silence that followed was louder than any war. Across empires, leaders argued through the night. Some wanted to strike immediately, fearing that delay would give humanity more time to grow stronger. Others wanted to surrender, to offer peace before the warship unleashed its full power. But pride and fear cannot live together, and soon the galaxy began to split apart. Old alliances cracked. Enemies who had stood together in the Grand Coalition now turned against one another. "We lost because of you," shouted the Zorak warlord at the Zenari Council. "You ordered the first strike. You led us into their trap." The council replied with venom. "You are cowards. You failed because you feared." Their voices filled the chambers with hate, but behind their rage was only one truth: they were broken. Meanwhile, in the dark corners of forgotten systems, rebellion spread like wildfire. The oppressed and the weak no longer bowed so easily. "The humans are back," they whispered. "The powerful are afraid. Now is our time." Chains were broken. Flags of resistance were raised. Small uprisings began to spark, and though most were crushed quickly, they carried a dangerous fire. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy's empires feared their own people. On the warship, the captain watched these events unfold through reports intercepted from every corner of space. He stood at the viewing glass, hands behind his back, his face as still as stone. His officers waited for orders, but the captain remained silent. He knew the truth: humanity had not fired the breaking shot. The galaxy had done it to itself. Fear had become poison, and now the poison spread. In the Sarn Collective, the War Chancellor gathered his fleet, swearing vengeance. He promised his people that humanity would be crushed, no matter the cost. But his words rang hollow. His soldiers remembered the coalition's wreckage. They remembered the silence. Some obeyed, but many only whispered doubt. In the Valor Dominion, secret factions formed, pushing their leaders toward peace with humanity. They argued that war would only end in destruction. Yet others in the Dominion cried for blood, unwilling to bow. Their councils fractured, and for the first time in history, the Dominion stood on the edge of civil war. The breaking point was near. Small sparks were now becoming flames. Fleets clashed not against humanity, but against one another. The Grand Coalition survivors accused each other of betrayal, of weakness, of failure. And while they fought each other, humanity watched in silence. On the warship's bridge, the captain finally spoke. "They turned their blades on themselves," he said. His voice was calm, but in his eyes burned a quiet fire. "We do not need to strike. We need only wait." The crew understood. Patience had been their weapon for centuries. They had waited in shadows, and now the galaxy itself was tearing apart without a single command from them. Yet the captain also knew silence could not last forever. Somewhere, sometime, one empire would dare to strike again. Humanity would need to be ready. The warship's engines burned quietly, turning toward a new sector. Their path was deliberate, their purpose hidden. They were not running, nor were they chasing. They were watching, waiting, preparing. Across the galaxy, ordinary people spoke of the humans not with fear, but with hope. "They do not seek conquest," many said. "They only want memory." But the mighty could not accept this. Pride blinded them, pride chained them. And pride was now their undoing. On the edge of the Kalari Ascendancy, two great fleets clashed in open battle. Zorak against Zenari, each blaming the other for humanity's rise. Thousands of ships burned, and billions watched in horror. The war was no longer about humanity. It was about fear, and fear had no master. In the ashes of that battle, one truth became clear. The galaxy had reached its breaking point. No alliance could hold. No empire could control the storm. Humanity had returned, and their silence had shattered the balance of power forever. On the warship's bridge, the captain gave a final order to his crew. His words were calm, steady, but carried the weight of destiny. "The galaxy bleeds. Soon it will call for us. Be ready." The crew bowed their heads in silence. They needed no cheers, no speeches. They understood. Humanity had not fired the first shot. Humanity had not broken the galaxy. But when the breaking point came, it would be humanity that shaped what rose from the ruins. And as the stars burned with war, one ship drifted like a shadow, patient and unstoppable, carrying the silence that had already changed everything. The galaxy had reached the edge of collapse. Fleets clashed not against humanity but against one another. Alliances shattered, leaders betrayed their own, and worlds once proud now burned in endless war. In the chaos, small rebellions rose higher, slaves broke their chains, and forgotten voices grew louder. Yet through it all, one presence remained calm, unshaken, watching from the shadows, the human warship. On the bridge, the captain studied the reports. Systems torn apart, empires divided, leaders desperate. He had waited for this moment, not with greed but with patience. Humanity had not destroyed the galaxy. The galaxy had destroyed itself. And now, from the ruins, something new could be born. The captain finally turned to his crew, his voice steady. "It is time." Across the ship, lights flared to life. Engines roared, weapons powered, and the warship moved with purpose. This time it did not hide. It entered a contested system, where two alien fleets were locked in battle, their weapons tearing the skies apart. The sudden arrival of the human warship froze both sides. Commanders shouted orders, soldiers screamed in fear, and for a brief moment, all fire ceased. The warship did not attack. Instead, it broadcast a signal. Across every ship, across every world tuned to that system, the same human face appeared again. Calm, silent, unbroken. "Your war ends here," the voice declared. "You fight each other out of fear. You bleed your people for pride. Enough." Silence followed, heavy and cold. Then the human continued. "Humanity does not come to conquer. Humanity does not come to rule. But the galaxy cannot survive as it is. Your empires are broken. Your alliances are dead. From this day forward, the old order ends. The fleets listened, their weapons idle, their commanders stunned. You may resist. You may call us ghosts. You may hate us. But you will not ignore us. We are humanity. We remember your betrayal. We remember your laughter when Earth fell. And now you will remember us. Not as prey. Not as victims. As the fire that rises from silence. For a moment, no one moved. Then the fleets lowered their weapons. The message spread across the stars like fire through dry fields. On distant worlds, slaves cheered openly. Rebels raised banners of freedom. Ordinary people whispered of a new order, one not ruled by fear of the empires but by the balance of humanity's return. In the great halls of power, leaders raged. They called humanity arrogant, dangerous, unstoppable. Yet behind their fury was fear. They had seen what silence could do. They had seen what patience could destroy. They knew resistance meant ruin. In hidden chambers, some leaders bent quietly, preparing to bargain, preparing to survive. The galaxy had been broken, and only one hand now held the power to shape what came next. On the warship, the captain gave his final command of the day. We will not rule with chains, he said. We will not crush the weak. But we will not kneel. This is our vow. Let the galaxy rise or fall, but it will rise or fall with us. His crew bowed their heads, their silence stronger than any cheer. Outside, the stars burned bright, reflecting on the steel of the warship as it moved forward into the unknown. Across the galaxy, whispers turned into belief. The humans had returned, not as a forgotten race, not as the victims of history, but as the dawn of a new order. And for the first time in centuries, the galaxy realized that silence had not been weakness. Silence had been the sound of humanity preparing to lead. The old empires had ruled with fear. Now humanity ruled with memory. And memory was stronger than fear.